friends, and welcome to this, my first Formula 1 build. And today we're building the Lotus Type 33 in 1/20th scale, and this is by Ebro. I've since learned that this company no longer exists, which is too bad. And from what I can see, I believe this was an old licensed Tamiya kit from way back. I'm a huge Formula 1 fan, so we're going to start with a classic old car, which I'm really looking forward to. I consider the modern era 1990, since that's when cars became digital, so to speak. Before then, I consider the classic era, and my favorite classic driver was Jim Clark, a two-time world champion who died prematurely in the late 60s, driving Lotus in Formula 2 in Germany. This was his favorite car that took him to his second championship. He considered it smooth, predictable, and he didn't even wear a seatbelt. The drivers in those days were legitimately afraid of being trapped in a fire in the car, which says a lot about the bravery, commitment, and sheer madness of Formula 1 in those days. We've come a long way. In any case, don't keep me talking about Formula 1, I'll never stop. So let's get cracking. What I'm doing is, after unboxing, first thing I'm going to do is bleach the chrome parts, because I've recently come into all clad and A stand metallic paints, and I can't wait to give them a shot on this kit. So I've cut all the parts off of all the sprues, and I've organized them into the different materials they'll be painted. Anything chrome or metallic needs to be primed with a high gloss black primer. To this end, I've discovered that Tamiya's TS14 is brilliant. With this many parts, I'm using the aerosol just to cover as much as possible. You run the slight risk that you might put down too much paint and it could run quite easily. But you are going to get a very smooth, high gloss, high shine finish, which is great for a metallic primer. This does come in a lacquer also that you could spray with airbrush for anything more delicate. With that done, I'm jumping onto the main bodywork, and here I'm going to prime with my favorite primer, which is Mr. Surfacer 1500 Grey. Good stuff, very smooth, goes on like a dream, and of course this is mixed about a 1:2 ratio with Mr. Leveling Thinner, that's its secret weapon. It has a retardant in it that slows the drying process, which means it's going to level off before it dries and give you a very nice smooth finish. In the meantime, my black primer is dried, so I'm going to spray my chrome. Now here I'm using A stand, which Ammo has licensed from All Clad. So A stand is All Clad. The colors are the same stuff. You'll see in this project I'm mixing between A stand and all clad based on what's available to me. I live in South Africa, so both of these products are a little tricky to find, and when you can't find them, shipping them into the country is a nightmare. Being lacquer paints, they're classed as dangerous goods and very difficult to ship internationally. So I'm painting the chrome, very lightly at first, and it's going on like a dream. Now, for dull aluminum, I don't have the all-clad color here. I'm falling back on my old collection of Vallejo Model Air, which is a decent metallic paint if high shine is not required. Then to seal all the metallic paint in, I'm using All-Clad's own acrylic water-based Metalic Varnish called Aqua Gloss Clear. On the main bodywork, after the priming, I sanded to smooth down as you saw and noticed there's quite a few gaps. So I'm using Vallejo Model Putty, my favorite filler, to fill those gaps. Afterwards, going to sand down again and reprime, at which point we're ready to apply the principal paint job. Before we get to painting the main chassis, there's various parts that need a little bit of prep. For example, the undercarriage on the vehicle has some metallic strips that need painting. You'll see I'm about to mask that. After that, there's some interior parts, the instrument panel, as well as various parts with this reddish brown material there, including the seat and the steering wheel. The steering wheel itself will need to be masked with Mr. Hobby masking solution. And that brownish red was achieved using Vallejo's sand brown acrylic paint. At the end of the day, it wasn't quite red enough for me, so I used All-Clad's transparent red, just a light dusting of that on top, just to push the hue in the correct direction. Of course, I neglected to film that bit, so just be aware that's what happened. When this is all said and done, I'm going to seal all the work in on the non-metallic bits and pieces with Vallejo's matte varnish, which is a polyurethane water-based varnish. This copper I laid on a bit thick and heavy initially, but good to know that when it dried off, the beading subsided, which is great. So, I'm very excited for the first time to use Gravity Colors color-matched automotive paints, and here I'm using Lotus British Racing Green, which is again color-matched to the real deal. It's a solvent-based paint, and a lot of learning happened here on my end. And I should mention that some mistakes were made. I didn't know that you could shock plastic. I didn't know that was a thing. And for anyone who doesn't know, that means when you use a solvent-based paint and you spray it onto the plastic, it shrivels. It kind of disturbs the plastic molecular structure, and it becomes like leather. It kind of shrivels up a bit, and you'll see a texture appear later on some of the close-ups. What should have happened is I should have built up the layers much slower and been a bit more patient about it. Basically 5 coats instead of 3. While the gravity dries, I'm going to paint some more metallic parts. including the exhausts. And here I had a lot of fun with this. I'm using all-clad gold titanium. You'll see a little bit later how I'm going to stain them with all-clad's hot metal color, including burnt carbon and sepia. Now I'm using hot metal burnt carbon to accent where the metal has been burnt almost black. And then after that I'm going to use sepia to kind of build a gradient from the raw gold titanium through to the carbon black, and you can see immediately how natural that's on to look as a heat stained metal. Okay, spoiler alert, this is where things go seriously sideways. I discovered a new product called AK Supergloss 1K, and I thought, wow, because I've been getting into 2K, but I thought this looks much easier, why not, let's try it. So I bought it, and this was going to be my test case. So I've laid down the first coat. It's the varnish and high compatibility thinner, which is essentially just alcohol. Mixed it, I believe it's a 1-to-1 ratio. And while that's drying, we're going to carry on. So with the first coat of varnish laid down, it's time to work on decals. Now this model has an upper and a lower half essentially to the main chassis, and they need to be aligned. So I'm going to build just enough of the suspension to be able to assemble the kit up to the point where the two halves of the chassis align, so that I can make sure the decals are laid down perfectly. I'm using Tamiya's Mark Fit Strong to soften the decals so that they can flow around all these contours. As you can see, this 1K is orange peeling really badly, but I've resigned myself to the fact that with a few more coats it should smooth out, and you know, we can probably just sand it if need be. Yeah. Next up is the driver's console panel. Each gauge has its own little decal, and I also use Mark Fit Strong to soften them and make sure they fit nicely in place. Then I'm using UV resin to form little droplets over each dial, and then hardening that with a UV light. And of course this gives you a beautiful high gloss finish. After carefully laying down all these decals, making sure they're perfect, and softening them all with Mark Fit Strong, I do another 2 coats of 1K clear. I'm feeling great. We're on the home stretch. We're almost done. Just a little bit of sanding, get rid of that orange peel, and this will be my first F1 kit. It's absolutely ruined. 1K becomes jello when you sand it. Devastated. It takes me 2 days just to research what the hell happened. There's no warnings about this stuff, and this is how I had to learn. I do a quick search online, and this is when I discovered that Ebro no longer exists. And this kit is extremely rare. It's out of stock everywhere. But with a little bit of luck and lots of searching, I found one on eBay. And this will be my donor kit to redo the ruined chassis. I'll spare you the detail, you've seen it before. This time though, I'm going to lay down the paint a lot slower. So this was about 5 coats. So I still got shocked plastic, even after 5 slow coats. But I have faith that my 2K will sort things out. That's right, I'm doing 2K this time, using Gravity's 2K kit, which includes the main varnish, the activator, and a reducer, which is effectively a thinner. And the ratio is 3:1:1. Once you mix these, you have an hour to work with it. So I'm laying down the first, what I call a dusted coat, just to lay down little beads of the stuff. So I set a timer for 10 minutes and then I'll come on with a nice thick wet coat. Then, I'm not going to labor the point and show you all the sanding, but I sanded from 3000 grit all the way up to 8000 grit with water paper until a nice relatively high shine. After that, I'm using Gravity's polishing compounds, coarse, fine and finishing. After that, I'm using their wax, which once you lay it down, looks matte, and as you let it dry for 10 minutes and wipe it away, and it'll be high shine. Some of the decals have had some wear and tear with all the polishing, so I'm doing some manual paint work. I'm laying down some glossy white and then Tamiya's yellow, which matches these decals exactly. Now I'm removing the masking solution and the steering wheel, and that's ready to go. And then it's just a bunch of touch-ups here and there. Here I'm using my model color as well as model air metallics, which I hardly use anymore, so I figured let me use them to paint. To accent the seats, I'm using Tamiya's panel liner in brown. The painting is done for the most part. Time to assemble this model. So like we did before, it's putting the monocock together, including the side panels with their decals on now. And that means assembling the front suspension. It's a little tricky, but very well engineered, even from an older kit. and it all just works beautifully. Then the radiator goes on. I have no idea what this thing is, but it's in there. I neglected to mention earlier in the unboxing, but along with a little bit of edge, this kit also comes with some real springs and some beautiful turned metal parts, including the exhausts and the cylinder heads. I think that's what you call them. They all fit beautifully and look great. Midway through, it's time to put the engine in, and that means assembling all the various pieces still. So putting the engine block together, and then the cylinder heads will fit on top. To accent the engine, I'm using Tamiya's panel liner again, this time in black. Unbeknownst to me though, when you use the odorless thinners to clear the excess panel liner, this undid my dull aluminum paint. So I'm using my new favorite tool, AK Real Colors markers, and this one is aluminium, or aluminum, wherever you are in the world. When you don't feel like breaking out your brush or your airbrush, using these markers is incredibly convenient. You'll see them popping up more and more on this channel. Of course, these exhausts were a little tricky to finally get in there, but they're looking good. I'm extremely happy with the hot metal staining on them. This car's suspension rig is endless and slightly on the brittle side, but I managed to get through it without breaking it with my big clumsy fingers. And all in all, it's some beautiful detail and nicely accented with this with the all-clad paint. Extremely happy with that. time for the turned metal cylinder heads, as mentioned before. Time to put the main chassis together, and this was a little tricky. It didn't quite fit perfectly, and the pressure popped that A-frame off, as you can see. Now, on the real car, there's a cover that goes over the cylinder heads, and it's made of a wire mesh, and the part that comes with the kit is a clear glass plastic piece with that texture. So rather than that, what I thought I would do is lay down some real metallic mesh over that piece, just for some authentic detail and whatnot. So this is a 60M mesh, whatever that means, that I purchased on Temu. Then I'm laying down to achieve the frame that goes around it. I'm just laying down some tape and then using my new favorite marker to line that tape and make it look metallic. Now, some clear glue from Tamiya to fix the windscreen in place, and very delicately putting the rearview mirrors on. For about 5 minutes I tried using my white gloves to keep my fingerprints and oil off of the glass pieces, but that wasn't working for me at all. With that all done, I'm going to sand down the wheels, make them look slightly used, and do the final bits of assembly on them before I attach it into the car. Now there are rubber washers inside the wheels, which make them a little tricky to get on without breaking this delicate suspension. Eventually, with enough playing, I managed to get them on. Of course, it was at this stage that I realized I'd completely forgotten to do the Lotus decal in the steering wheel. Luckily, we got that on there. And last touches, I'm fixing another decal that took a bit of a bashing in the polishing phase. Now for the last little pieces of etch, and that is the Lotus 33. This was a tough one, so nice. I bought it twice, but I have to say I learned a lot. I learned how to shock plastic, and that you cannot sand 1K varnish. I'll use the 1K again, but only for small parts that don't require polishing. I still need to work them up and getting my car chassis to a high shine. I'm not quite happy with that, but all in all, still very happy with how this kit turned out. Anyway, I hope you liked this. I hoped it was helpful. Thanks for watching, and see you soon on the next one.